Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome back, Misfits, and welcome back to a new episode. Today, we are continuing the Angel Encounter series.
Yes, more angels.
I hope y'all have been enjoying this series.
It's been, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. Party of two, and we've been enjoying it.
Yeah, so 100% enjoyment from the Misfits.
We looked at the stats. It's 100% enjoyment.
Yeah. So we're going to power through. We're going to keep going because we're getting a lot of good feedback from ourselves.
Yeah. Indeed we are.
Indeed. So feel free to give us feedback as well,
Yes, on all the platforms.
On all the platforms.
Yeah, you don't even need to think about it. Just anywhere you go, Midtown Misfits, and we will be there.
Yeah, send us a message, rate us, review, whatever, all the things. Yeah. We appreciate it all.
Yeah.
So you can also join us.
Yeah, join us.
In rating and reviewing.
Exactly. So today, like I said, we're continuing the series about the angel encounters. And just for a quick recap, these episodes do stand alone. However, we do recommend that you go back and listen to the beginning.
Yeah.
Because they kind of piggyback off each other.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's jokes over there that we're probably going to mention today, and you need to know.
Yeah. It'd be good.
Yeah.
More context.
Yeah, more context. Context is king.
Yeah.
So just for a quick recap. So far we've talked about Hagar, who heard an angel but didn't see him. Then we talked about Joseph, aka Earth Dad, who saw an angel in his dream. And today we're going to talk about a couple who saw an angel in person.
Yes. They were not asleep.
No, they were not asleep.
And wasn't just a voice.
Right, exactly.
Correct.
Yeah. We're going to get into it. So many of us know the story of Samson, but I don't think a lot of people talk about his parents and how the announcement of his birth came to be. And that is why we get paid the big buckaroos.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
To tell you about those stories.
That's why we're here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is a free podcast.
Yeah.
It is free 99.
Free 99.
And we don't get paid, but with jewels in our crown when we get to heaven. But that's all that matters. That's us focusing on heavenly things, by the way.
Yes.
So, praise God. Yeah, let's go. So we find this story in Judges 13. For context, the Bible tells us that, again, the Israelites were doing what they wanted, and so God turned them over to the Philistines. And also, the book of Judges, for some who don't know, maybe you haven't read the book of Judges, it's a book of deliverers, right? It tells the story of deliverers that point to Jesus. And so all of the men and women that are listed in the book of Judges were people God sent to deliver or free Israel from some sort of captivity or subjugation situation that they put themselves in.
Right.
And then God raised up all of these men and the one woman, Deborah. Deborah. However you want to say that.
Well, however you want to pronounce it.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Deborah.
But we love her.
We do.
And she's amazing. And she's
awesome.
like a prophetess also and all sorts of things. But those are who the judges are. And this is where we find the story of Samson and his parents.
You've probably heard about Samson, but if you don't know or you haven't heard or you're like, yeah, I've heard the name or whatever, he's the guy who was like super strong, and then he got tricked by this woman. And if you want to know about that, you can listen to that. We actually have one about Delilah. But I just kind of want to give a caveat. So, like, he did great things, but this is kind of his, like, the story before he was born.
This is his Genesis.
Yes.
The story has actually nothing to do with him other than he was going to be born.
Yeah. But it, like, sets up who he's going to be in the future.
Right.
And so that's how we get his parents involved in all stuff.
Yes. So, now that we have that out of the way, on to the story. So, Samson's dad's name is Manoah, which, by the way, great name. And we don't know his mom's name, unfortunately, but that happens a lot in the Bible. But
right,
she's
that's
here.
Not uncommon.
Yes, not uncommon, but she's here and she's important, and she's a part of the story. So we'll read all of Judges 13, and we're gonna separate. There's actually 2 encounters, but we're gonna separate them: encounter 1 and encounter 2. So this is Judges 13, and we're gonna start in verse 13. Again, the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight, so the Lord handed them over to the Philistines, who oppressed them for 40 years. In those days, a man named Manoah from the tribe of Dan lived in the town of Zorah. His wife was unable to become pregnant, and they had no children. The angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and said, "Even though you have been unable to have children, you will soon become pregnant and give birth to a son. So be careful, you must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, nor eat any forbidden food. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son. and his hair must never be cut, for he will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. He will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines. The woman ran and told her husband, "A man of God appeared to me. He looked like one of God's angels, terrifying to see. I didn't ask where he was from, and he didn't tell me his name. But he told me, 'You will become pregnant and give birth to a son. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, nor eat any forbidden food. For your son will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from the moment of his birth until the day of his death.'" That's what the Bible says.
Yeah, very direct,
Yeah.
very clear
Yeah.
of what this woman needed to do.
Exactly. So a couple of things that we wanted to point out for this first angel encounter.
Yeah.
Again, we see the quote unquote the angel of the Lord, meaning that this is a Jesus sighting again in the Old Testament, which is so cool because a different angel announced his birth in a similar manner when the angel appeared to Mary many years later. But it's cool because he got to do it for somebody else.
Yeah. It's almost like you said, like Judges like points to Jesus, right? So I feel like this is a good example of like a parallel of where like an angel spoke to this woman, letting her know she's gonna have a son. Same way like an angel appeared to Mary and told her she was gonna have a son.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. When you see parallels in the Bible and you can actually recognize them, you're like, "Whoa, that's cool."
You're like, "Hey, that sounds familiar."
Yeah. So also, like many other women in the Old Testament, we see that Samson's mom was infertile at that time and wasn't able to conceive. We don't know how old she was, although we tried to find it and we couldn't because the Bible doesn't tell us, and Google did not deliver.
No.
It did not. I tried. It did not deliver. Maybe someone knows, and if you know how old she was and you found an article, let us know.
Yeah, but ultimately, I feel like that's a small
detail.
That's a detail that if God didn't want us to know, that's fine.
Exactly. But similar to the other stories, because we see a lot of stories about women being infertile or barren, and they tell us the age, right? It's because she was old that it was amazing that she ended up getting pregnant. But in this case, that's not the case. We don't know, and her age has no important role in this.
Yeah.
Number 3, the angel then gives her instructions to adhere to the Nazirite vow, and these instructions are for her and for Samson. We also find what his purpose was, and it was that he would rescue Israel from the Philistines. Right. So this is interesting because, fun fact, if you know or didn't know, John the Baptist had also made a Nazirite vow, right? And in this instance, the Nazirite vow, of course, was told to Manoah's wife. I was going to think of her name. We don't know her name.
We don't know
Manoah's wife. That he was going to be, like Samson was going to be a Nazirite from his birth. Yes. But she had to adhere to the Nazirite.
Like customs and traditions.
Right. Yeah.
While she was pregnant.
Exactly. Which is really cool because I don't know if y'all knew this either, but the Nazirite vow typically, it was like a tradition. It was something that people just did, similar to like Christians just fasting.
Right.
But it was always it was like a temporary dedication to the Lord, right? But the cool thing is that Samson was supposed to be a Nazirite from when he was born till he died.
Yeah, like his whole life.
And that's like pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So number 4, this woman, Manoah's wife, knew she had an encounter with an angel, and the angel was, quote, terrifying to see. Now this is the NLT version that says that, terrifying to see. The New King James Version says, quote, his countenance was like the countenance of the angel of God. Very awesome. Right? So depending on what you read is what you're going to get. Because what we wanted to address here was the fact that many angels appeared to other people, other humans. And they were like, don't be afraid. Yeah. And in this case, we just wanted to be clear because this is Jesus. And so he's probably appearing like a man. Yeah. And so it's not freaking people out.
Right.
So we checked the concordance and found that the word terrifying and awesome was defined as several things. It was defined as fear, afraid, terrible, dreadful, terrible thing, reverence, fearful, or terrible acts. So I don't know, she could have felt the fear of God, which is reverence and awe, or she could have been just amazed.
Right.
Right. Because it doesn't seem like it was like a
fear,
afraid fear.
Yeah, like where she wanted to run away.
Yes. Exactly.
Same.
Exactly.
But it's also something, of course, very like out of the norm and obviously not something she had experienced. Yeah. So it's also one of those like, what is happening?
Right. Yeah, I feel like the word awesome really
it really is. It's awesome.
Right?
Like I'm just like in awe of what's happening right now.
Right. Yeah. But either way, the terms all go hand in hand. And so, we just wanted to talk about that because we're not sure what she was feeling, but she was feeling something.
But she was feeling something.
Yeah, exactly. And then number 5, lastly, she told her husband everything she heard from the angel, which for our married people, important.
Very important. Mm-hmm.
I know that God may sometimes on special occasions, maybe, be like, hey, he might give you a word and tell you not to release it yet. But when you are one, like covenant one and married with another person, what God says is for the both of you, because you should be moving in tandem. And to be clear, we're not married, but that's what we suspect it happened in this situation, and we see it all throughout.
And that's what we see,
Right, because like if just because I heard something doesn't mean that that's not gonna be like that's the answer for both of us. It just happened that I got it, right? Which is speaking to me. It's good. It's good stuff. Yeah,
good preparation.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so then we go to the second encounter. So she had a second encounter with the angel, and we go to verse 8. It says, "Then Manoah prayed to the Lord, saying, 'Lord, please let the man of God come back to us again and give us more instructions about this son who is to be born.' So God answered Manoah's prayer, and the angel of God appeared once again to his wife as she was sitting in the field. But her husband Manoah was not with her. So she quickly ran and told her husband, 'The man who appeared to me the other day is here again.' Manoah ran back with his wife and asked, 'Are you the man who spoke to my wife the other day?' 'Yes,' he replied, 'I am.' So Manoah asked him, 'When your words come true, what kind of rules should govern the boy's life and work?' The angel of the Lord replied, 'Be sure your wife follows the instructions I gave her. She must not eat grapes or raisins, drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, or eat any forbidden food.' Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, 'Please stay here until we can prepare a young goat for you to eat.' 'I will stay,' the angel of the Lord replied, 'but I will not eat anything. However, you may prepare a burnt offering as a sacrifice to the Lord.' So Manoah didn't realize it was the angel of the Lord. And verse 17 it says, 'Then Manoah asked the angel of the Lord, "What is your name? For when all this comes true, we want to honor you." "Why do you ask my name?" the angel of the Lord replied. "It is too wonderful for you to understand." Then Manoah took a young goat and a grain offering and offered it on the rock as a sacrifice to the Lord. And as Manoah and his wife watched, the Lord did an amazing thing. As the flames from the altar shot up towards the sky, the angel of the Lord ascended in the fire. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell with their faces to the ground. Verse 21, the angel did not appear again to Manoah and his wife. Manoah finally realized it was the angel of the Lord. And he said to his wife, "We will certainly die, for we have seen God." But his wife said, "If the Lord were to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our burnt offering and grain offering. He wouldn't have appeared to us and told us this wonderful thing and done these miracles." And verse 24 says, "When her son was born, she named him Samson. And the Lord blessed him as he grew up. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him while he lived in Mahanadan, which is located between the towns of Zorah and Eshtaol." So a lot happened in this second encounter, right? Yes. We see that he prayed. He wanted another, to see this angel again. And the angel did, but appeared to his wife. Mm-hmm. So again, this confirms kind of the last point we made where, since they are one, aka they're married, right? They share information between them. So the wife didn't keep the secret from him. And right away, Manoah prayed. The angel appeared to the wife. And she's like, "Hey, you need to come because this is what you prayed for." So essentially, they're both getting the answer right from God. So some key things that we see here. One, we see Manoah wanting confirmation, right? Like he heard what his wife told him, but he's like, "Hey, I totally hear what you're saying. I understand. Like my wife told me everything, but also like there's some questions I got, and I just want to confirm. Like if you can just fill me in a little bit more, that'd be great. I would love to like have a conversation with you, that kind of thing." And so now he got his second encounter, but the angel didn't necessarily tell him everything that was going to happen. It was more of a call to obedience. It was just repeating what he had already delivered, but did grant him like, "Hey, I'm gonna come back and just confirm what I told you." So we are Manoah sometimes, right? In this aspect of wanting to know like every step that God has, like, "Hey, you told me a plan. Tell me everything. Right. What's going to happen? How is it going to happen? Like what day, what time, who's going to be there?" Because this is just how we are, right? But this is something that we've all been there. We've all done this, but at the same time, we all need to be obedient, just like Manoah was.
Yes. And I made a reel about this, but it was about how we are asking God questions of the future, and the angel of the Lord literally just repeated what he had told them before. So it was like, if you're not getting a new word from God, go back to the old word. That's essentially what happened in the situation.
Like you need to be obedient to that word.
Yeah.
And God will continually show, but like you need to go back to that word.
Right. Like, because I was saying in the reel, I was like, we don't even know if she was pregnant at this time or anything like that. And you have 9 long months for this baby to like actually come to fruition.
Yeah. You need to first get pregnant and then actually have this baby.
Focus on getting this woman pregnant and then following the instructions for this X amount of time. And then you get the next instruction.
Right. And as you need to know more, he'll reveal more.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, preaching to ourselves here.
Yes. Anybody who's listening who's also been there.
Yeah.
The other thing is Manoah recognized the angel to be God, right? This is why he was like, let me offer you a sacrifice, which you only did to God. You only offered sacrifices to God, because the verse says, the angel of the Lord. So, which again, like you only give sacrifice to God. And again, we see in this verse where it says the angel of the Lord. So again, we're seeing Jesus, right? Being manifested in this place and being the angel of the Lord.
Right.
And that's what he does.
Like literally in what he did in the Gospels, which was like whenever people tried to like worship him, he was like worship the Father, right? Yeah. Like everything was for the glory of the Father. Right. And this was no different, because he was like, I mean, I'll stay. I can't eat it though. Sacrifice it to the Father.
Sacrifice it to God. Yeah. Exactly. The other thing is the angel says when they ask him his name, he's like, his name was too wonderful. And so of course this echoes back to Isaiah when it's talking about Jesus, right? And it says his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Wonderful is one of his descriptions, one of his names. And so when he says that, again, it's echoing back to Jesus being like, it's too wonderful. Like it is, it's him. And so we're referring to Jesus. It's me. You will know me.
But I can't tell you, but it's
not
me.
yet, but it's coming. Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it.
I don't want to spoil it, but I'll give you some hints.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so then the next thing is we see in verse 21 that he mentions how Manoah finally realized who he was talking to. And he basically had like a freak out, right? Like, oh no, like I think we're going to die, right? The very next verse says that, like, we're going to die. We just saw God and like, you know, all this happened. So, of course, he's referencing back to the book of Exodus when Moses had asked to see God's presence, and God lets him know that no one can see him and live. And so we have an understanding here why he freaked out, right? Like, of course, he's freaked out. This happened with Moses where he couldn't see God.
Right.
Here he's understanding, like, yo, we saw God. We were about to die.
Yeah. And if Moses, of all people,
Moses
was, you know,
like
similar to Abraham, just very reverential. So it's like, if he couldn't see you and I saw you, I'm surely going to die.
Any moment, I'm just going to drop dead here. So, of course, this also gives us understanding that Manoah was a man of God, because he knew what the scripture said, and that he knew the Torah. And so he knew what was written there. He's like, oh, no, we're going to die. He had a little mini freak out, but that's also us, right? We'll have moments like that too. Thankfully, his wife, who's the voice of reason and the one who was trusting God as well, knew that they could not die, because reminding them that, similar to like the Apostle Paul when he got shipwrecked, like, we need to understand, like, we can be in these situations, but if God already gave us a promise, he's not going to let us die before it, and he's going to fulfill that promise. Right. So she was like, no, God promised us something.
She's like, I heard him.
Yeah.
He said it twice.
You were here the second time.
Die. He said, we're going to have a baby.
We can't die.
Yeah.
We can't have a baby while we're dead.
Yes.
So, like, chill. God's going to make this come to pass.
Right.
He's given us a promise. So again, God's word will not return void. They did. They had the promise of the son and this amazing thing that would happen. And Manoah's wife knew that they couldn't die because of that. And then the last thing is, there was just so much going on in the story, right? We can break down a lot more things, but in all of this, we just see a couple being obedient and doing what the Lord had showed them, right? Understanding.
And having very human moments in
yes,
between,
in between, like, even the second encounter, like, of Manoah being like, hey, I need to have this encounter. I need to see this. Yeah. So he wasn't doubting what God had said. He just like, hey, I need a little more confirmation here. And even though, like we said, like, God didn't tell him, hey, this is what's going to happen next. He just made a confirmation. And so they were able to just then step into obedience. Right. So, so there you are. Another angel encounter. And, this one in the flesh, if so to speak. But bringing that promise, like, he did in all the other encounters too. Every angel encounter, there was a promise there, no word.
Yeah, no, this was great. because I don't think I hear people talking about this in the sense of like, yes, we know Samson, right, and the hair and Delilah, and they plucked out his eyes and all of these things.
Yeah,
but like the fact that because everything is generational, everything has generational impact, right? Either generational blessing or generational curse.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for the obedience of his parents and the obedience of his mother in specifically, because she could have doubted the whole thing and not even told Manoah.
I'd be like, that was weird, I'm not telling him
like
anything.
The whole thing would have been like, nah, I'm not doing it, right? And then it just doesn't come to pass. Or like Zechariah, that she can't talk for like however long or whatever.
Like till the child is born.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just very cool to see how just her obedience, them coming together as a couple and standing in faith in what the angel of the Lord told them was going to happen. And then actually the dream and the fulfillment coming to fruition in Samson. And Samson, we know, had his ups and downs, but ultimately he prevailed. And did what he was supposed to do, right? And the Bible tells us that he killed more Philistines in his death than he did while he was alive. So magnificent story, 10 out of 10, highly recommend.
So definitely give it another read if you haven't, because there's just so much in these, even beyond what we took out of it. Like there's just a lot. And again, kind of like we talked about, like we see these parallels to the announcement of Jesus coming as well, and how God was already preparing and showing us like things that were to come by showing up in the Old Testament and all these different stories and different ways. Knowing that he was also going to come one day.
Yes, the ultimate deliverer. And we are so grateful. Yes. So that's the episode for today. We hope that you enjoyed it. We hope that you learned something about Manoah, his unnamed wife, and Samson. And again, this is Judges 13, so we definitely recommend that you read it. And as always, this is Fran.
This is Yadi.
We are the Midtown Misfits, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.